was a typo, and I'm like, welcome to Comics League Movie Night. I'm Jared, and today we are talking about Justice League Warworld, which was okay. So I have like a complicated relationship with this movie. And what I mean by it is when this was coming out, I was a little confused by the plot of this movie. In fact, I think Teladia and I talked about it on a past episode of Comics League Dark. And kind of what I thought was that this was like, I had originally thought like, what is going on here? Or like, the problem with this movie is that it doesn't explain the main plot of the film that well, but it is interesting. So the idea of this is that it's the first Justice League movie, even though it's just about the Trinity. So this follows Wonder Woman, Batman, Superman in that order as they go through different like multiverse worlds. And like with Wonder Woman, she's on the Justice Riders Earth essentially, where she is like essentially a cowgirl that's traveling through the town, finds some people that are being oppressed by Jonah Hex, and helps them like liberate themselves, and does standard Wonder Woman stuff, and straight up kills people with guns in this. So I'm like, well, that's interesting. Maybe Zack Snyder should have directed this one. And for Batman, he's more in like a Conan the Barbarian like world with the Warlord, who is a DC character. And so, and also Wonder Woman's also in that one. And then Superman is like I think an FBI agent during like the I want to say 60s or 70s in the Cold War like era thing, and it's all in black and white, and it's like essentially alien invasion like stories. So they do a lot of cool stuff with this. So here's the thing. Here's what this movie does well. This movie does well is that each character is like represented well in their world. I kind of wish that like Batman was more of the cowboy one and Wonder Woman was more of the one that was in the barbarian one, because I feel like that would fit more with her being like a warrior and stuff. But I'm like, okay, fine. It's like I see what you're kind of going for. Plus, Wonder Woman has some precedence being like the Justice Rider, so that does really work. But it's so the thing about this movie is that they do seem very unconnected at first. Because I had said in the review I did with Teladia like years ago when this came out, because this came out in 2023, I was like, okay, what they should have done is probably like not expanded the black and white one, because that's the one that seems to be the most connected, and then just gotten rid of the other ones. So I'm like, okay. So, but what's cool about this is also the introduction in the Tomorrowverse of the multiverse. And again, the next movie, which is Crisis, which we're going to do a special thing for Crisis, we're going to like they obviously really expand the multiverse and such. And what we don't know, at first we think that this is the Wonder Woman from Earth 1, the main Earth that we followed throughout this entire like movie series. But as it turns out, this is the Wonder Woman that is like from Earth 2, Justice Society, World War II, which I think is pretty interesting because it kind of shows like, oh, the future of these characters is moderately interesting how this turns out. And Wonder Woman is obviously a badass in this, so that was really cool. And then what you get is, so in each of the worlds, it's unique and stuff, but when you get to the actual multiverse stuff, you also learn, so this is where they first hinted that Wonder Woman and Superman of Earth 2 were together. And I remember in the trailer, she puts her hand on the S shield of his chest, and I was like, something's going on with that. And I even told Britt this when we watched the trailer. I was like, Britt, what? And we were like, Interesting. And she even said like my Clark and stuff. So we didn't believe it until Crisis happened, and we'll talk about that when we finally talk about Crisis, probably next month. But so this involves Mongol, who is the villain of the first Earth, and they've kind of set this up since last movie, as a matter of fact, the Legion movie, where like characters are being kidnapped, because what Mongol's doing is he's essentially traveling the multiverse and kidnapping people to like run Warworld and such. So, and that's kind of cool. I don't like the Mongol design for this, because Mongol is supposed to be kind of like this big hulking dude, but that kind of doesn't come across in this character design. So I'm a little bit like, why did you do this? That really doesn't work that well in terms of like communicating who Mongol is. But I think that's kind of cool. So and the other like main character, even though he's kind of in like not in most of this movie, is Martian Manhunter, and he has a very important scene later. So Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman escape the multiverse and show up on Warworld. They get their costumes and they start fighting. And I just love this because they still have like these dope action scenes. And that's the thing that I will say about the Tomorrowverse, is that they had some really very interesting like action scenes for this, where the characters feel powerful, particularly when you get to like Crisis on Infinite Earths and such. But they really feel like gods, and I kind of like really dug that with this. So what is revealed here, which is actually really, really, really cool, is that what Mongol is looking for is the key that is essentially like that is supposed to be able to like unleash Warworld like fully. What's revealed is that when I think it's like when Warworld was created, the key was essentially half white Martian DNA and half green Martian DNA, because at the time, and as established in the comics forever, white and green Martians at war against each other. So you have that, and then what you get is it's essentially like they're forced to like join forces, and I really, really, really dig how they go with that, if you will. And so moving on, and I'm breezing through the plot of this, and then I'm gonna go into each one, and then we can like talk about that more specifically. So then, before Warworld is destroyed, Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman are picked up by essentially Harbinger, and she brings them to the Monitor's like satellite, and they watch Warworld blow up. John's supposedly dead, and they go, there's going to be a crisis coming in. So I'm like, oh, okay. That's when they start teasing Crisis on Infinite Earths, which was supposed to like end the animated universes like that was established in Flashpoint Paradox. Because what people don't necessarily know is that all the DCAU movies from Flashpoint to like Crisis are one continuity, and they really reveal this in Crisis in a very interesting way. So I'm actually pretty like impressed they were able to do this. In fact, this is actually called Phase 2. This whole thing, the Tomorrowverse. So that's actually really cool how they roll with that. So going back to the cowboy one, because what I liked about this is like this is kind of like the Wonder Woman origin, where she shows up, and even there's like a Steve Trevor-ish character there who still calls her like Angel and stuff, but and his name is Lash. But what's kind of cool, he still dies, ironically, like the Sovereign kills Steve. So I'm like, interesting how that turns out. So I felt that was actually really like really humorous how that ends up, very humorous. So then, and it's like with Jonah Hex, I'm confused because I thought he was necessarily like an anti-hero / good guy. I didn't know that like he was also like a villain at certain points. So that's actually kind of cool learning more about the character. And which works because one of the writers of this movie was Jeremy Adams. So what do you expect when it comes to well-written characters? And so the next one, which is the barbarian one, where Bruce Wayne's essentially just called the Mercenary. It takes place on Skartaris, and they kind of played with the warlord storyline in the DCAU in one of the episodes of Justice League Unlimited, where Supergirl, Green Lantern, I think it's Captain Atom, and Stargirl travel to, I think it was the center of the Earth, and discover Skartaris and all that stuff. And essentially they fight who is like a wizard, but he's actually like, he's a wizard, but he has like a revolver. That's his like magic wand. And they discover a woman there. It's a slave girl, but it's like, it's Wonder Woman. And she doesn't necessarily like remember how she got there. So what I think is going on here, because it seems to me like all these versions are the same Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. What's probably happening is that after they like resolve each scenario, they are like, I guess, plucked from that timeline and put in another one to power Warworld. So in other words, like as soon at the end of this, Batman and Wonder Woman walk through a portal, and then it just goes into the black and white world. So what I think is going on, as soon as they go into that, they're plucked into roles in the black and white world, and then just like their minds are wiped and stuff, because they play around with like the people around them are clones, but these are not. So it's confusing, and honestly, that's a weakness of this movie, is that the plot is slightly confusing, and I'm like, it's for the longest time. Let me put it this way: up until Crisis, that's when Crisis is what made me like understand this movie and made me appreciate it more, because I was like, oh, okay, that's why that happens. Because even in the Warlord section of the movie, what happens is like Batman at one point sees like essentially like the you guys remember in Crisis on Infinite Earths when Barry Allen like pops out of like time in front of Bruce Wayne and goes, essentially, save us, Bruce, I'm falling apart, or something like that. That's what that is. That is 100% what that is. But I didn't know at the time that was Barry Allen, so I'm like, who the hell what is going on here? And I feel like, because at the time, because remember, we were supposed to get more Tomorrowverse movies. It's just what happened is when the DCU was picking up, the people running the animated universe didn't know like what was going to like go on with like the animated movies, how it was going to affect it. So they decided that to be safe, let's just cut it off here and just end with Crisis and stuff. So it wasn't like a James Gunn said, you have to end the universe because I'm going to do my own thing. No, it was more like they were like, in the unlikely event that they cancel, that we get canceled, so we don't have to like do it, so we don't have to like rush later, let's just go ahead and just like do it and end it of our own accord, which I'm like, I can respect that for sure. I can definitely respect that. And it's weird because if you guys even know, I've said it many times, we were supposed to get the Justice Society movie was supposed to be a Wonder Woman movie and there's supposed to be multiple Wonder Woman movies in this, which would have been great. And this is why I prefer this universe over the AMU, because even though the AMU and the main universe did it, hey, what's up, Cameron and NJ? Even though the animated movie universe, the Flashpoint era from Flashpoint all the way to Apocalypse War, did like Super Wonder to a degree, or had Wonder Woman. In this universe under Jim Craig, Wonder Woman was very much way more respected. That's what Britt and I said in our Super Wonder episode on this, is that Wonder Woman was not a mouthpiece for Lois. She was not in any way like denigrated. In fact, she was held up. She is, spoiler for Crisis, the linchpin of the entire thing. So when I see a movie universe that, and you guys know I'm a big Wonder Woman fan. I think you guys should know this at this point. And this was the movie that I'm like, okay, there are some people at DC that respect Wonder Woman because these movies exist. Because you can even take, again, even though it's not even though it's labeled Justice Society World War II, you can actually just call that a Wonder Woman movie because that's pretty much what it is. She is clearly, even though the Flash is like quote unquote the lead, she is like the co-lead, if you will, of that movie. So it's really interesting seeing that. I really wish we would have gotten more of this Wonder Woman. Yeah, I know, because this is like one of the best animated Wonder Woman things. Again, this is why I overlook like the cheap-ish animation and stuff, because when you have a storyline this good that respects the character, I'm like, I'll take a little cheap animation. And plus, yeah, the relationship with Superman, again, it didn't overtake it. It was more like a background thing, but they respected it. And they used the multiverse really well. They were like, okay, and they said, this one was with Lois. She died because of old age, because Superman and Wonder Woman are, for the most part, immortal. They say, here's the thing about Crisis. They say Superman's not immortal in that, but I'm like, as long as that sun is yellow, he is immortal. Unless that sun turns red in the near future, he's gonna be immortal. So I'm like, you might as well just say he's immortal. But anyway, it's essentially that. And it's like, then they were like, okay, yeah, he was with Lois. She died. And he decided, okay, let's go with, let's have him be with Wonder Woman, which is funny because when Crisis Part 1 came out and that like scene came out, I remember the internet blew up because the universe was called, or the fan base, particularly the Clois fan base, was accusing Superman of being an adulterer with Wonder Woman because he was with her in this universe. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute. What are you talking about? Because Lois is dead. But they were like, because Wonder Woman, it's like they were operating under some type of like belief. Because here's the thing. When you get to the story of Immortal Beloved, and this is one of the things that has damaged Superman, is that storyline. Because in that storyline, Superman and Wonder Woman are like fighting in Asgard for thousands of years, or like 1,000 years or something like that. So what had happened was, so as far as they know, Lois is dead. As far as they know, they don't know that they can go back and like go back essentially in time. So when I'm there, so they have this scene before the final battle where they're like, okay, this is the final battle. You might as well, they kind of lean into kiss. All right. So then Superman says, it will always be Lois no matter what. And I'm like, and I'm like, that is totally pathetic. That is really pathetic. And I'm just like, what are you talking about, guys? I'm just like, what? And that's why I was like, this is totally stupid. And that's where it leads to this. It will always be Lois no matter what for all time. And that's where I'm like, and the reason why I went on that tirade is because that's where this like opinion came. That's where he committed adultery came from, even though Lois is dead and the wedding vows are traditionally till death do us part. So she died. So there you go. So I'm like, what the hell is the problem? But anyway, it's like beyond this, it's like, yeah, and then when you see Wonder Woman in this, she is 100% like a badass. Even in Justice Society, when you first see her in combat, she there's like some German soldiers firing on civilians. She walks up on this hill. It's even my intro for Wonder Woman Legacy for Wonder Woman Wednesday. It's like she walks out, she's like so badass and stuff. By the way, Tom King did yeah, because guess what, NJ? That is legit a ripoff of that storyline. Because let's talk about that storyline, NJ. Someone comes to Wonder Woman and says, you have to come fight for 1,000 years with me and take my place to fight 1,000 years. She takes Batman. They share adventures throughout the time period. They have a time when they almost kiss, but it's literally their love for other people that stops them. That is like almost shot for shot a ripoff. And that is the thing with Tom King's writing. A good portion of his stories are just ripped off from other work, either movies or comics. And I'm like, bro, you really don't have an original idea, do you? Because all your original ideas have been done and done better. That's it. I'm not going to say plagiarism because that's not like, that's a serious accusation. I'm not going to throw that out there. I'm going to say it's like ripping off, though. There's a difference between those two. But I'm just like, no, dude, this is how you know it doesn't work. Because you couldn't even take it. Arguably, it was worse with that storyline because it turns Wonder Woman into a seductress. To NJ's point, it denigrates Wonder Woman and turns her into a seductress. And that is honestly one of the funny like things that Britt told me. It's like when King was announced to be the writer for Wonder Woman, anyone that's watched the show for a while know that at first I wanted to say it could be good because when King understands the assignment, he understands the assignment. He clearly can do it. I always look out for I always try and be as positive as possible. You guys know this. The problem is like then as the series went on, it started to get like really bad. And that's why, like, if you guys notice, I waited like 19 issues to see, okay, can he like turn it around? Because hey, he could have. He really could have. But anyway, this isn't about Tom King's Wonder Woman, unfortunately, because I could go on for rants about that forever. But essentially, it's like this Wonder Woman is like beating up white Martians. She's straight up defending a town in the Wild West. In the next movie, she rides a freaking T-Rex because Craig remembered and Adams remembered that Wonder Woman can talk to animals. That's why I say, and NJ, you and I have talked about this on my Q&As about who should take over after King. Yes, Rucka and like Kelly Thompson would be great. Don't sleep on Jeremy Adams because he was one of the primary writers in these movies. And this is some of the best written Wonder Woman we have gotten in so long. So that's why I always slip his name in for consideration because also he wants to write. He's straight up said he has a pitch for Wonder Woman that he keeps submitting to DC. So he wants to write her. And honestly, every time we have creatives that clearly want to write Wonder Woman, like Rucka, like Jimenez, like even Perez back in the day, we get some of the most character-defining runs ever. Whereas opposed with Tom King, look at what we get. We get crap. We really do get crap. So that's what I'm going to tell you right there. But onto this. It's so they show up in the middle of this, like, and I love how Lobo actually is the one that leads to the heroes winning because he like sabotages Brainiac. And then I love Lobo. He goes, "Oh, you mean the paid mercenary? You can't trust the paid mercenary? Shock!" And then Superman just heat visions through the door, and they're standing there like badasses. And they go, "All right, let's do this," and then they fight, which it's so good. All the fight scenes in this is great. Wonder Woman's like deflecting laser bolts. She's like throwing white Martians everywhere. It's really fun. I really dig this. But in terms of like how I would rate this movie, this is the one where I'm going to give I think a 7 out of 10. Because again, it comes across too much as an anthology movie that they try and like thread a story around. And that could work. The problem is they should have threaded it through the other stories. Like the only time where like what's going on in the movie the overall plot of the movie connects to one of the stories is the black and white one. The other ones seem extremely separated, and I'm like, that's why originally Teladia and I, when we reviewed this movie, I said just take out the first two like shorts, as good as they are, just take them out, and then just go start with the black and white one, and then go straight into Warworld. Plus the Warworld part of it, which would have been so cool. Hey, what's up, Thoth? The Warworld part of this movie would have been so cool, but it's like 5 minutes of the overall movie. It would have been cool to see more of that, because Warworld is a really fascinating part of DC. And maybe that's why a certain writer did a certain saga of Warworld. So I was really digging that. But it's one of those movies where I'm like, it could have been better. It should have been better, honestly. But for the characterizations of like Superman and Wonder Woman alone, that's where I'm like, yeah, this at least deserves to be above average, at like a 6 or a 7. I would say more of a 7 because of that. I'll give it a 7. But other than that, very, very enjoyable. But I think let's do a little question and answer session, shall we? And tell me, what did you guys think of Warworld when you guys watched it? Did you enjoy it? Did you hate it? What did you guys think? Let me know what you guys think of the. I enjoyed it. Yeah, it's not a horrible movie. It's no Birds of Prey or anything like that. But it's like, one of those distinctive things where I'm like, okay, it's a interesting movie with an interesting plot. It could be better, but I'm like, okay, I'm digging that. It was okay. 6.5 out of 10. Yeah, that's not bad. I'll give you that. That's fair. That's fair. I'll give you guys that. I enjoyed how they did the multiverse. Yeah, it wasn't that bad. And this is kind of like a good introduction to the multiverse. So I'm like, okay, it's not that bad. It's just it could have been so much better. So I'm like, oh man, the potential was there, and that's why I take off like 4 points for it, because the potential is there. But it was interesting the way they did it. I also really dig the design for Wonder Woman in this, because it has that classic golden agey feel to it, but it still incorporates the armor look, which I really dig, because it is still the armor. And what's interesting, when people talk about the bikini part of like the Wonder Woman costume, it's still referred to in the comics as armor, so it's still armor. That's kind of the humorous part of fan discourse about it. I enjoyed the action scene, especially one of his badassness. But as you said, the plot's a bit confusing. But yeah, the barbarian. I was like, oh wow, she actually looks really cool as the barbarian Wonder Woman. And honestly, that's why I say, NJ, the barbarian should have been the Wonder Woman story. Because if they had done that for the Wonder Woman story, can you imagine how cool that would have been? Plus, it kind of works. She's like a one. You don't have to do the mercenary bit, but maybe she's like a princess trying to. You could do the absolute thing where she's like wandering the like land trying to find her people, and then you can like incorporate that and use that character design for Wonder Woman. And I'm like, oh, geez, that is dope. Actually, I'll pull up an image of like Barbarian Diana. So Justice League Warworld. So this, all right. Let me pull up a good picture. Okay, here we go. So this is the barbarian Diana. This should be an Elseworlds version of Diana because it just looks so good. Check this out. Yeah, look at that. Isn't that good? Isn't that great? That is so awesome. She looks good. It doesn't look exploitative. She looks kind of like Red Sonja, honestly. With the way that as she's like, look, she even still has the gauntlet. She has the tiara and everything, and they actually gave her like well-defined abs. I'm really impressed, but by the way they did that. In fact, here's a really good look about that. It looks really dope. And by here is like the actual costume here, but it's still like armor and stuff. Gorgeous as always, exactly. And here's like the black and white. But yeah, that is really good. That's the other thing that I really dig about. But here is the Wonder Woman costume later in the movie, which again, it has like that golden agey feel, which makes sense considering this is the Justice Society World War II Wonder Woman. But it looks modern enough, and it's the armor because she's still wearing armor, but it still looks actually really dope. And then you even have it builds off the Justice Society Wonder Woman costume really well, I think. And then here's like the cowgirl Diana, the Rough Rider Diana, which I'm like, okay, that was actually really cool. And it was kind of interesting seeing Wonder Woman use guns. I'm like, I don't know how I feel about that, but it's interesting. According to Black Canary, Diana has the second biggest breast in DC. I wonder who the first one is. Probably Power Girl, but still, I'm like, I'm sure Clark Kent is not complaining. NJ, I'm sure Clark Kent is not complaining about that. But it's like, but it is really cool seeing like a Wonder Woman that is respected because again, she's not used as a mouthpiece. She is her own independent character, and she is a badass in this entire movie series. And I'm watching this, and I'm like, why couldn't this be like the other Wonder Woman? Oh, why couldn't this also be the Wonder Woman from the DC AMU? Why couldn't she not be a mouthpiece for Lois? Like again, I say the worst DC AMU movie was Death of Superman / Reign of Superman because they break up Super Wonder off screen and then in the next movie have Diana be a mouthpiece to prop up Lois. And by the way, they were clear that that's what they were doing with Diana, is using her as a mouthpiece to say, oh no, you should like Superman being with Lois. And I'm like, oh, screw you. You don't get to tell me what I want. When Wonder Woman says, what Clark and I had was nice, but you're his true love. Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, something doesn't work. And then they literally have Wonder Woman go, I have a thing for like the Superman, if you will, that's like that has the sunglasses. I'm like, oh, you mean the one called the Eradicator? The one that's literally about like gentrification and like eugenics? That's the one? Interesting. But anyway, this is not that. So if you want a male writer that would 100% write circles around Tom King, it's Jeremy Adams. Plus, here's the funny part about it. Jeremy Adams has a reputation for fixing Tom King's mistakes. He did so with Wally West. And to tell you guys how significant that is, after what happened with Heroes in Crisis and everything, there were people saying that Wally West is now unfixable, that he's a ruined character. Jeremy Adams comes on Flash and like completely 180s the character and almost completely fixes all the damage done. So that's why I'm like, if there's one guy that I am pretty certain could do it, it's Jeremy Adams. So if you're watching this, dude, please keep asking to do Wonder Woman. I would love for you to be a Wonder Woman writer. But anyway, but anyway, by the way, it is very like, how how she even sexually attracted to the erratic. I don't know. It doesn't make sense, NJ. That again, that's my problem with that movie. It's like it's not supposed to make sense, NJ. They're just so what they did is they stabbed you in the chest by saying by having Diana call Lois Clark's true love, breaking them off screen. And then they twist the knife by having Diana have a crush on the one literally called the Eradicator. So I'm like, that's why I'm like, when I look at that universe, that is the defined like end point where that gets bad, because the previous movies, like I would say from Flashpoint up until like Justice League versus Teen Titans, is actually really good. It's just then you get to, and actually one of my audiences, I forget which one it is, said that the problem with the later DC AMU is that they were trying to fit in post-crisis storylines into a universe based on the New 52. And I'm like, that's a good point. That is a really good point. That's what they were trying to do. And even when you get to like Wonder Woman Bloodlines, which I think is another part and parcel of that, they make Wonder Woman 100% reliant on Steve and like worshiping Steve. Where if you look at like, guess what? The other movies previous to that, yeah, she was with Clark, but she wasn't like overly like, oh my gosh, Clark. She wasn't like worshiping at Clark's feet. Yes, they were together, but she wasn't like constantly like validating and worshiping Clark. So that's why I'm like, again, watch the movies and you'll see the stark difference in character. As opposed to this one, where not once did it ever feel, at least to me, that she was being used as a mouthpiece to prop up another character. She was always the one being propped up and said, isn't Wonder Woman the basic thesis of the Tomorrowverse, that if I had to summarize the Tomorrowverse's depiction of Wonder Woman in one sentence, it would be, isn't Wonder Woman awesome? That's basically what it is, because this universe is basically a tribute to Wonder Woman once she enters it through like Just Society, because it's like all of her movies, she is the linchpin. And when you look at it, Krieg has been clear. He's a big Wonder Woman fan. And you know what? This is what happens. And NJ, you'll appreciate this. This is what happens when you put creatives on a character that clearly love that character. Because you can put Wonder Woman in new scenarios like the cowboy one and have her like still be Wonder Woman and stuff, but it still feels like she's the character. It's like Kelly Thompson with Absolute. You could place Wonder Woman in a completely different world and scenario that, again, should not work, but she still acts like Diana. And she still acts like Diana in this one. That's the remarkable thing about this universe. And this also reaffirmed to me, this depiction of Wonder Woman, that Wonder Woman should have an accent. And I like the way they kind of go with this. And by the way, the woman voicing Wonder Woman, Stana, I forget what's her name on this. It's Stana Katic. She also voiced Talia al Ghul in the Batman Arkham games. So reportedly, she's a big DC fan. So that kind of explains how she really how she really understands the character really well. So I'm like, okay, that actually works really well, and I really appreciate that. So she really nails it, and I really, really, really appreciate it when a writer can actually, when a creative actually understands the character and wants to prop up that character. Creators like him, Thompson, Raku, Karen Leverett are rare in the industry, sadly. There would be more if DC gave more opportunities to them. Because, again, according to Jeremy Adams, so he kept pitching that he has a Wonder Woman pitch, but DC originally said no because of the optics of a man writing Wonder Woman. And again, then they give the role to Tom King, which I'm like, okay, so you're telling me King isn't an issue. Arguably, King is a way bigger red flag. So likely, I could definitely see them like undoing like going away from that idea. Now, granted, after King and the like collapse of his run, it could be that like they go against like having male writers on it because of that. But again, with Rucka, there's too many good examples of male writers that get Wonder Woman in order for that to like mindset to really take hold. So that's what I'll actually like say with that. But again, it's like this whole universe, and especially this movie, is a very much a tribute to Wonder Woman in like the best way possible. Like the best. It's like this is the universe where if you tell me that these people loved Wonder Woman and that they understood the character, I would believe this universe was built from people that love the character. I've seen nothing but good stuff. I've seen nothing but in this whole universe. I have no complaints as to how Wonder Woman was portrayed in this. I also love how she kept saying no to Steve proposing to her, and I'm like, dude, get the point. And I love where Flash goes, "Oh, you're a stalker," and I'm like, "Oh, there you go. Flash is calling out what we're all thinking." So that was very interesting there. That was very interesting. But let's hear some of your questions. What do you guys want to ask about this or DC animation or just DC Comics in general? I'm here to answer your questions. What have you guys got? I am here to answer any of the questions that you guys would like to have answered. Could be anything about the Absolute Universe as well. DC, let's see what you got. Thoughts on Hex in this film? Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that because I'm like, okay, Jonah Hex being a bad guy, it's interesting, and I guess it kind of works with his character. But I'm like, I I really don't know how I feel about that, honestly, Cameron. It's like I get it, they needed a cowboy villain, but I'm like, then just have it be like the cowboy version of Two-Face or something like that. The Japanese also care a lot about, which is interesting. Yeah, exactly. And I said that it's kind of funny. NJ, isn't it hilarious that like one of the most respectful depictions of Wonder Woman was in a Batman animated movie? That's the part where I'm like, oh wow, that's why I titled my Wonder Woman Wednesday on that way, because I'm like, are you kidding me that it was in a Wonder Woman, it was in a Batman movie that Wonder Woman was the most respected in that? It's because again, the Japanese have a history of respecting the IP and lore of the character, and I'm like, interesting. That's kind of cool. I would love a Wonder Woman anime, by the way. That would be freaking dope to give her like an anime movie. That's one where I'm like, ooh, that actually could be really, really, really cool. Never know, but I'm like, that could be actually really interesting if they do it right. If they do it right, but chances are they would, based upon the fact that we get that with like a Batman Ninja 2, that if that was the depiction of Wonder Woman, I'm like, okay, you could clearly tell that the people behind that movie really dug Wonder Woman because she's the hero of that movie when you think about it. And she even like practically rallies everyone. She's like Action Comic Superman, honestly, in that way. A Wonder Woman anime would be epic as hell. Hopefully we get it soon in the near future. I know. It's like, because if you look at like the imagine like Blood of Zeus on Netflix. By the way, NJ, I want to recommend this for you guys, and Britt and I will talk about this tonight when we do Super Wonder Legacy live at 9 p.m. watch Blood of Zeus on Netflix. That is like, if you like Greek mythology and animated shows that are like anime, it, do that show, because that will like thoroughly like entertain you. And if I were to do a Wonder Woman like animated series, it would be that animation style and everything like that, and let that team handle it, because they did Greek mythology so well, like ridiculously well, and epic as all hell. It was one of the best like animated shows I think I have ever seen for like for that subject material. But yeah, it's essentially do Wonder Woman like that, and you're like golden. What else do you guys think? In terms of like, well, what other questions do you guys have about this movie, Tomorrowverse, even DC AMU, or whatever other questions you guys would like answered to me? Did you see Twilight of the Gods anime? I did. I did. It's by Zack Snyder, so that's not like really interesting about that, because that's what, and that was awesome as all hell. That one worked really well, and it really built up. It really showed what Zack does well with DC characters, because it's like, even though they weren't DC characters, but what I mean by that is like, that's why I always loved his depiction of DC, because he treated them like gods amongst men, and still found a way to humanize them, which I'm like, that's a very interesting way to go with it. But it's a really interesting show, and if you like mythology in any way, you should check out that show. It's really dope. I really enjoyed that. What other questions do you guys got? What other questions do you guys have about shows I watch, about comics I read? What would you like to know before we wrap this baby in a bow? And it could even be about my favorite depictions of Wonder Woman, whatever you guys would like to know. Just ask away, my friends. Ask away. Because I'll be going until at least 7. Is Jonah Hex canonically a prevert because his attitude toward Diana's movie was cringe? I don't think so. I really don't. I think that was more to like depict him as like a villain. I don't know. I'm not like the biggest like Jonah Hex guy, but what I don't think he's canonically supposed to be a pervert and all that stuff. Again, I think that was more of like, let's make him more of let's make him clearly the villain in this, so people don't root for him. So we'll just go with that. And I'm like, I get it. I don't like what you have to depict other characters as like, it's like as like very evil for that when they're not that. But all right, whatever. Okay, I'll kind of go on with that. I guess I get it. What else do you guys got? What other questions would you guys like for me to answer? I actually thought Vandal was going to be the villain when I saw given the time periods. Yeah, that would have been cool because what you could do is reorganize it, take the barbarian one, put that first, then go barbarian, cowboy, early 1900s, and then just have Vandal be the villain. But then again, it's like how else we introduce the multiverse. But still, it's like that would have been fairly interesting if you wanted to have him be the villain. That's a way to do it. I'm not exactly that like against that, and honestly, Vandal would have worked as the villain. So there's a way to do that. I'm like, okay, that's kind of cool. I'll give you that. That's pretty dope. Do you think Batman and Warner Adventures were a result of issue 20 from the made it from 82 to 47? Do you think the Mouseman arc won't do good? Do you think Batman and Wonder Bat shippers were the reason issue 20 made it from 82 to 47? First off, it was 82 to 48. I have a suspicion that could be why. That's kind of like that's my theory. That's why I'm like I want to wait until I see what the Mouse Man is because there are people that will buy issues because of Batman. Now, what's interesting is that it's still like if you notice with issue 20, it still was like below. If anything, it didn't rise above the 80s, the 40s still. So that's actually really interesting when you think about it, because really Tom King is back to where he started when we were before he dropped to 82, which I'm like, that's interesting. That's why I'm like, let me put it this way: issue 21 could drop dramatically, like issue 19 did, as far as we know. I'm not banking on that one. What I'm banking on is the Mouse Man arc, because here's the problem with using Mouse Man. He's a villain that's not a draw for people because most people don't even know who the hell Mouse Man is. When he announced that was the villain, I'm like, who? So I don't think that's gonna like help. If anything, I've long said that the Mouse Man arc is gonna be the final arc of Tom King's Wonder Woman, and that's my theory, because it's like that's gonna come on. It's not gonna do as well, and then according to some buddies of mine, my friend Jim has a theory that there's going to be some shakeups, some like renumber ones and stuff of a lot of the books coming in September. I'll believe it when I see it, but I just wanted to bring that up in September. And I think if he doesn't improve the sales, let me put it this way: regardless, he's not reaching issue 100. No matter how many times he wants to say he wants to reach 100, it's not happening because the sales are not there for it to reach issue 100. The only reason why he got close to issue 100 with Batman is because it's freaking Batman. That's why. So again, likely just going to be issue 50. That's the latest we will be in. That is 100% when it ends. That's what I am. That's what I and most people familiar with DC Comics believe the ending is almost guaranteed to be. Now, if it completely flops, like, let me put it this way, again, when we get to like it, let's say issue 21, 22, 23, 24, and 25 all keep dropping like dramatically, like when it went from 40, like I think it was like 6 to 82, like if they keep dropping by that much, then I say that they completely like destroy it. Or the minute it starts making Clunrad numbers, that's when DC says, okay, and they're doing like a creative shakeup. Well, let me put it this way. Regardless, he does not have the staying power anymore to make the what's the word? He does not have the staying power to survive another shakeup. The only because if you notice, when they went from DCU from what was it, Dawn of DC to All In, he was one of the books that survived the transition. Shouldn't have, but he was one of the books that survived it. And I don't think that he's going to be able to survive when they move on to the next thing. I just don't. But and as far as your question, NJ, no, I don't think the Mouse Man is going to sell at all. I really don't think it's going to do well. And then also, then you add in the fact that, remember, during this period, we're also going to be getting the Trinity Daughter of Wonder Woman book. And as you guys know, I don't think that's even going to chart. I would be very surprised if that charts. And it could. I still just do not think that it's going to do as well as DC wants it to. Because DC apparently kept thinking that Trinity was going to be this big thing for DC, which it would have been had you actually put a competent writer on her or have the competent writer introduce her. But as you guys know, we're not that lucky. So that's kind of interesting how that ended up. It's interesting to think about, but all in all, the way to think about this, to give you guys a little hope, no matter what, we're not going to have to endure 4 years of Tom King's Wonder Woman. We are not. Under no circumstances does that happen, unless the book gets massive and he dramatically improves his writing skills. Like, as far as we know, hey, the Mouse Man arc could be freaking fantastic and he could turn it around. Not going to happen, but I'm saying it could happen. And the book gets positive and then the sales dramatically improve, then he stays on for a long time. Likely not going to happen because it's Tom King. But short of that happening, 30 to 50, somewhere in that window, he ends his run. Because then DC will be able to say, hey, we gave you 50 issues. That's not anything to sneeze about. And then you can move on and do a book that you would rather do. There you go. You're done. Max says, do you think Vandal Savage should be a Wonder Woman villain? No, I don't. Because I don't believe that Wonder Woman should be, like, ancient. So I'm going to give you that. If that answers your question. Angie says, I just hope we get Hippolyta back in the next issue when she loses her divinity. As far as we know, it could. This arc was made and enforced by editorial on King to bring her back. Could be. And you know what? That would be dope as hell if they did that. Honestly, if they did that, that would be the first time in months that I will say, okay, the King actually did something I agree with. And that is to get Hippolyta away from being a goddess, because honestly, that was stupid. Now, don't replace Nubia as Queen of the Amazons, because I think that's like the stereotypical way to do it, which I feel like that's what King will do. But I'm like, don't do that, because you have a good story with that. Plus, to NJ's point, if Hippolyta lives with Diana, and then you can have some good mother-daughter bonding moments. But as you guys know, King is more focused on father stuff because he's trying to self-insert into every book he does. That's why I have no, like, faith in what they're going to do. But it's like, we'll see. It's still possible that he could dramatically, like, improve this, but I don't think it's likely. But I think that's a good place to leave it. This was a great movie, great stream. Be sure to show up in about 2 hours at 9 p.m. when Britt and I go live to do a special Mother's Day edition of Super Wonder Legacy. We're going to be highlighting some of the most important moms in all of DC Comics, and like our favorites like Laura, Hippolyta, Diana, and Martha Kent and all that. So we'll talk about that. I'll still be doing my Wonder Woman Q&A tomorrow afternoon. Wonder Woman Wednesday is most likely going to be on which Wonder Girl I think is my favorite. And next week's movie night is going to be a Robert pick. He picked Batman versus Two-Face. So be on the lookout for that. Stay heroic, everyone. Remember, Lois Lane is Lois Lane. Steve Trevor, Steve Never. She belongs with General Zod. He belongs 6 feet in the ground. Zois and Max Sabat for life. I will see you in about 2 hours. Bye-bye.